You may be seated. Hi, y'all. Welcome to Frida's senior thesis presentation. My name's Mrs. Keenis, and I've had the pleasure of Frida being my senior assistant in Algebra 2 this year. I am joined on the panel by Mrs. Westphal and Ms. Gomez, and we're just really grateful that y'all are here and excited to hear what Frida has to share. So I'll pray, and then we'll get started. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you for this opportunity for Frida to get to share the things that you've put on her heart and her mind throughout these past several months. I pray that this time would just be honoring to all that hard work and thought that she's put in to these ideas in this presentation. I pray that you would just give her clarity of thought and mind during this next 45 minutes, and that it would be honoring and glorifying to you. It's in your son's name I pray. Amen.
We accept the love we think we deserve. But why is this? Why do we choose to accept love even if it causes us pain? And is it even love at that point? To give and to receive love is something we are made for. Expressing it, however, can be hard. Whether in excess or deficiency, there's always going to be something that affects the way we give and take it. Giving too much can lead to suffocation, too little will result in isolation. These resulting feelings may go unnoticed, but they are still felt. To answer these questions, we must first find what love is and what it means to love. So, what is love? Depending on who is asked, that can be a heavy question. A scientist may break it down to simply neurons firing in a certain sequence to release specific chemicals into the brain. A hopeless romantic might say that it is something that is destined to happen and can conquer all. For the rest of us, we might say that love is sitting in silence and being completely comfortable in the company of one another, growing together and having patience. This last definition is more accurate to those who have experienced a healthy love, religious or not. As the Bible says, love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoings, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. This biblical definition can be used by anyone. It is the blueprint on how we should all strive to love. Although believers are aware that love comes from God, those who do not have faith have only the knowledge that it is instinctual, one that comes from one of the three brains we have. Those brains being, first, the reptilian. That is something that all animals have. It is the first brain we've had. It helps with our fight or flight, our natural instincts. If we were to be put out in the wild right now, I guarantee you that brain would help us survive. The next is the limbic. That's the one only mammals have. That's the only explanation people have for love, and the only explanation as to why mammals tend to care for their young after they are born. The last is the only one that us humans have. That's the neocortical. That's the one that allows us to voice these emotions. A general theory of love explains that natural selection should favor emotionality for the same reason it does any feature: enhance survival. With this, it is still unknown as to why we have different love languages, but it's clear that it is something passed down from generation to generation. We learn to love by observing our parents due to the sheer amount of time we spend with them. We learn how to regulate our breathing from skin-to-skin contact, as well as learning how to discern different emotions as well as express them. The earliest way we learn is through facial expressions. When we see certain ones, they send signals to our brain for us to interpret and feel. A general theory of love once again says, rising activity in the emotion circuit produces not sound, but among other things, a facial expression. When the neural excitation exceeds a shadowy threshold of awareness, what emerges is telling, the conscious experience of emotional activation. If a parent does not show any sort of emotional attachment or support, the child will live a very emotionally confusing life. If a child were to witness an unhealthy type of love, they will most likely look for someone who enables that because it is something they are comfortable with, even though deep down there is a festering feeling of unhappiness. When we witness our family dynamics growing up, that becomes our normal, healthy or not. Upon speaking with Mrs. Cynthia Wall, a now retired psychologist who graduated from Baylor University in 1988 from their Doctor of Psychology program, I was given a more in-depth description of the 4 attachment styles we learn while being raised. The first one is secure. This is someone who is loved by their family, loves others, and has the expectation to be loved. The next one is insecure. This one, as Mrs. Wall put it, had a very touch-and-go relationship with their caretaker, and they seek validation. The third is avoidant. This is exactly how it sounds. They avoid closeness because they have been disappointed by their caretaker in the past. The fourth is the final one, ambivalent. The people who are needed most in these people's lives could not be trusted, and it is very hard for this person to form connections. These ways of love apply to all relationships. The way we are treated sticks with us well into adulthood. In a secure household, a child will learn how to handle their emotions and have empathy for themselves and others. Doing research for this on Psychology Today, I found that both fathers' and mothers' interpersonal strengths, including kindness, love, and social intelligence, matter for nurturing the same strengths in the next generation of children and adolescents. Loving securely is one of the easiest things we as people mess up. The way we are designed allows us to react before we think, and oftentimes, that reaction is something that sticks in the back of a person's mind forever. With this, it is easy to love with conditions. A parent may only give their child positive reinforcement when they get good grades or never show an emotion that isn't contentment. In a relationship that isn't familial, a person who is withholding will only give attention to someone who pleases their every desire. We are not called to love this way. As most of us here have learned from 9th grade, agape is the Greek word for unconditional love. Even if we do not have God in our hearts, we should love this way, because love with conditions should not be considered so. Creating unnecessary and sometimes impossible expectations for someone to follow causes so much pain for both parties. Pain for the person setting them because they are disappointed because human nature causes us to fall short, causing them to be withholding. The one trying to meet these expectations loses their main source of validation and begins to think that they are the problem. This leads to a form of love that is prevalent in our day and age. Known as clinginess, over-loving is a form of love with conditions. When someone who believes if they don't sacrifice everything they have for another person's happiness or comfort, they're not worthy of love. Often compared to people-pleasing, the nature of this can be seen as either good or bad. Good for the people who believe that they deserve more than others and take advantage of this vulnerability, and bad for the one trying to please due to the sheer amount of energy it takes to keep up with someone's ever-changing emotions. And if there is no one trying to take advantage of this constant worshiping, the affection can be suffocating. Someone who has only ever pleased will feel as though that they are not worthy. They will do all that they can to receive validation, and once they are allowed just a small ounce of it, they will chase that high until someone gives up. Feeling unworthy of love is very common in media. As we learned this year in Human Society and Literature, A Tale of Two Cities had a character that showed this very clearly. Sidney Carton. A clear moment where he exhibits this is when he asks Charles Darnay for his friendship after apologizing for his drunkenness. If you could endure to have such a worthless fellow, coming and going at odd times, I should ask that I might be permitted to come and go as a privileged person here, that I might be regarded as a useless piece of furniture, tolerated for its old service, and taken no notice of. It would satisfy me, I dare say, to know that I had it. Although this may not be categorized as people-pleasing, it is very clear that Sidney is very self-conscious of who he is, and he just wants to be accepted for it, even though he has spent so much time becoming the person he hates. Because he sees himself as lazy and erratic, he tends to drink, in hopes that this morbid feeling will go away, but the alcohol just makes it worse. It is very easy for someone who is wounded to wonder if they deserve the love and attention they are receiving, especially if they feel like they've done nothing to warrant it. The love being received can blindside people, even if it is for their own good. If there is a mismatch in communication, there will be a chance of retaliation and pain. When any emotion comes into play, we are vulnerable. Not knowing who we are makes that truth even worse. Believing that you live for others allows selfish people to take root in your life. And yes, they do fill the void temporarily, but once they take their inevitable departure, there is still a void that needs to be filled. I find this to be true even with God in my heart. Questions such as, am I unlovable? And why don't they love me as much as I love them? Or why don't they love me the way I love them? Often appear when there is no sense of secure attachment. Being left, even by accident, leads to self-doubt. If they can't love me, why should I love me? But this, however, is a backwards question. It is important to show self-love. It helps us learn who we really are, and this sets the standard as to how we should be loved. Knowing what we are okay with and what our goals are is rare, but it protects us from people who want us to be made just for them. Loving others well is hard. It takes time and self-realization to acknowledge our strengths and weaknesses. Knowing, or at least thinking we know how to love, is difficult only because there are so many things that can be seen as normal and okay, when in reality, it's not. If someone is used to an insecure type of love, they will have no clue how to accept a secure one. The moment they feel they are being loved too much, they will begin to doubt their whole relationship. And not having to beg for this attention is out of the ordinary, so not asking for it may feel suffocating. Not communicating this feeling may build up and lead to hate. The two extreme emotions, love and hate, are very similar in nature. They're both directed at someone because of who they are and how they've treated us. They can transform into one another, and it is believed that it is easier to hate someone than it is to love someone. The line between the two is hard to walk. If someone were to have experienced a bad love growing up, it is easy for them to switch up from one to the other. Any small thing can change a person's whole outlook on a loved one just because they did something nice, neutral, or otherwise. We are called by God to love others, and even as a believer, that is difficult. So why should unbelievers? Well, with the ideal definition of love, they should seek the betterment of others. Allowing someone to keep doing the same self-destructive and stagnant habits is not love. That is enablement and tolerance. Pushing someone to be better may hurt them in the beginning, but it is only happening to change them for the better. It should not matter if you're there to see the end result, as long as you know you help them become the best that they can be. If you want someone to be different for your own happiness, it is not love. This sets us up for failure due to our fallen nature. Being allowed to change someone is a privilege, and that privilege should only be used with the best intentions of others in mind. So, in love, there's always going to be risk and fear. To love is easy, but to love right is the hardest thing a person can do. Whether in excess or deficiency, there's always going to be disconnect. We are met with so many different challenges in life that affect who we are and who we turn out to be, and that person is ever changing. To let others in and love us comes with different challenges, and there will be moments of doubt, especially when it comes to change. To change for others or have others change for you should not be the long-term goal. That will only cause long-term pain. Whether we know God or not, it is important to love with good intentions and the end goal being betterment and growth. We are called to uncomfortable situations, but we are not meant to stay in them. After all, to be loved is to be changed. Thank you.
Great job, Frida.
Thanks.
You got that part over there. Way to go. All right, can you start by telling us about what your plans are for after graduation?
So next year, I intend to go to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and major in nuclear engineering.
Awesome. Can you tell us why you chose either of those things, Tennessee and nuclear engineering?
Well, Tennessee, I kind of was on the fence for a little bit because I was accepted into the Ivy League of Texas. But once I toured it...
Why quotation marks?
Well, it's not technically an Ivy League by the exact definition of it.
Okay.
But I went to go tour it, and I was like, I'd like to live in this area, but I don't think I'd like to go to college here. So I chose Tennessee, and that was kind of the choice to begin with. And I like a challenge, so what's more challenging than going out of state and majoring in one of the historically most difficult majors?
Yeah, sounds pretty challenging to me, but you can do it. Can you tell us also a little bit about the process of how or why you chose this topic for your thesis?
So it was exactly this time last year. I was scrolling on one of the various social medias I have. I came across a quote that was I overwatered my plant and it died. Sometimes I wonder if love can be violent. And for I'd seen that before, but for some reason it stuck with me that time. So I was like, that's really interesting. Why would that be the case? And originally that was supposed to be my title, but I was dissuaded because it sounds kind of like domestic abuse. So Can Love Cause Pain was most similar to that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting analogy with the plant. I mean, a lot of us have probably seen that little tree that was out there by the entrance to the gym that all the gutter water poured over and it just killed it out. So
yeah,
it is an interesting thing to think about if it can be overdone, love, which obviously you delve into here. How do you think your understanding of love changed throughout this research process?
It definitely showed me what kind of attachment style I have and how I've been raised to see love, and it's not really the ideal definition, but sorry, what was the question?
Did your understanding of love change throughout this process in a lot of ways?
Yeah, because I always thought giving your all was a good way to love, but it's really not, because for the person giving all their love, it's exhausting because you always have to keep up with another person, but the person receiving it can be they can either be fine with it, or eventually they'll probably be this is too much, I can't deal with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good distinction to make. You talked a bit about this at the beginning, about like the origins of love and like how innately we yearn to receive and give love, and kind of the scientific background on that as mammals and specifically as humans having that. Which brain was it?
The limbic.
The limbic brain that allows us to express love. Why do you think God created us that way?
I think, well, we were created in his image, so with my kind of limited understanding of it, I think we were just meant to be like him, show love and be able to like receive love without like wanting something more from it, Like, I shouldn't expect someone to do something for me or like love me if I haven't given them a reason to, or showed them how I would like to be loved, So I think, does that answer the question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That kind of brings up another question of, like, I think somewhere I know somewhere you mentioned, I'm not going to find it right now, about us being, like, worthy of receiving love.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that, like, are we worthy to receive love from God and from others?
At first, I kind of did, and then I talked with Mr. Westphal, and he was like, well, the Bible says, I forgot, like, somewhere, but we're not deserving, but still, we're still loved. So I don't think we're, technically deserving, but just being given the chance to receive it or give it is something that's very important and something that's, like, within all of us.
Mm-hmm. So where does humility come into play there?
I guess being able to accept it, or being able to let your guard down enough for someone to come in and love you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I kind of want you to explain a little bit more the quote that you opened up the speech with. Can you say it again?
We accept the love we think we deserve.
Can you unpack that some?
Yeah, so I chose that one because it comes from one of my favorite movies. Probably like my favorite movie, Perks of Being a Wallflower, even though I haven't seen it since freshman year. But they've been, in this scene, Logan Lerman, I forgot his character's name, was talking to Paul Rudd, the teacher. And it was like, the context of this was he saw his sister like getting hit by her boyfriend. So he asked his teacher, like, why do we choose to stay with people that hurt us? And the teacher just responded with that. And I was like, wow. Like that, when I think of that movie, that's like the main part I think of, other than like the whole thing making me cry the whole way through.
Is that why you haven't watched it since freshman? Yeah. Maybe you should have in research for this thesis, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I've never seen it, but maybe I should.
Maybe.
Let's see. Why, you mentioned that humans, when you finish talking about the different brains and how like all mammals have the, what was it? All mammals have the emotional brain, but we're the ones that have like speaking, rationing, and expressing our love. Why are humans more likely to err when it comes to loving correctly than animals are?
I think I said this, but like we are given the opportunity, to react before we think. So a lot of times the easiest reaction is going to be like snapping back or like being mean. So that can really mess up like someone's day. Like they're just trying to be nice, and then you just go over there and like, stop it now. Because like you didn't think through like why they were doing what they were doing. So I think that is why we're most likely to mess up, because we are allowed to just not think about it.
Mm-hmm. So what role do emotions play in loving someone?
Like what do you mean?
Do they have a role? I mean, because kind of using the servant leadership thing that's come up a few times now. What's the order? Feel, act, think. Is kind of like our tendency, you're saying. But that maybe to love more properly, we should think before we just act out on our emotions. So do emotions play a role in loving, or?
I'd say they do. I was like refreshing myself last night. I was like reading the book General Theory of Love again, and I saw a part where it was like emotions are like the fifth sense, you know, or like love and emotions, or like sixth.
Okay. Which one are we gonna?
Whichever one. They're like another. They're like within our senses, but it's like a different type because it's like seeing, feeling, hearing. Those are all like material, but like love and emotions are like within you. And when you're loving someone, I think it's important to keep your emotions and their emotions in mind, because you could still get hurt in love and it can still be healthy. But when you think about like long term how they're gonna feel, it's something that's very important to look at. If that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Okay.
Great. I'm gonna pass it off for now. But
all right, you've done a good job, Frida. I got the privilege of talking with your parents for a few minutes before your presentation started today, and you talked in your speech about how we learn to love from our parents. So I was just curious which one of your parents you resemble more in your style of loving, and why do you think that?
I'd say like a mix of both of them, but mostly I'd say now my dad, but it used to be my mom.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. A less personal note. Okay. Yeah. Would you say that love is a feeling, or is it a choice, or is it something else altogether?
I think it's something else altogether, because like you can't really choose who you love, as we've seen like out and about. But I think it's a different thing, because let me see. It's just something that you feel like you don't know you're learning to love someone, or you're beginning to love someone until like you actually love them, and you like take a step back and you're like thinking about it and you're like, oh, like I love this person, you know, like I feel like not like I feel like I love this person, but like I know I love this person, you know.
Okay. So do you think then that love is simply a result of chemicals in our brain then?
I mean, looking at it from a not religious note, kind of, but like that's all emotions, so that argument isn't really like, it's not really valid, because it applies to like everything, you know. It would explain why we're bored, because we're not getting any chemicals in our brain. But what was the question?
If love is just chemicals in our brain, is it just a reaction?
So.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay. Okay. A different direction. If a person had unloving parents, how can they learn to love others? Are they just doomed? I mean, because you talked a little bit about nature and a little bit about nurture, right, in the development of love styles. But if a person grows up with unloving parents, do they have any hope of learning how to love well?
When I was speaking with Mrs. Wall, she told me that a way that can like help them is therapy. So I'd say probably therapy, and just, I know it's hard to say, or like hard to do, but like trying to find the Lord, like trying to find his word, and like getting to know him, because like that's kind of like what's helped me grow as a person.
Right.
Like before I came here, I wasn't religious, and then like sophomore year I was like, oh, you know, like I love God, and I've like started to feel better about like others and myself.
Right.
So
Okay, well, so the converse to that question is then, with a child with loving parents, could they become an unloving person?
No, I don't think so. Also, like referring back to my interview, Mrs. Wall told me that like they'll find someone who has the same who had the same like type of loving parents, so they'll pass that on, and they'll hopefully like not stay with someone who isn't like loving.
So you think if they developed a healthy sense of attachment and love growing up, that's what they'll
look for.
Through.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, why is loving other people such a difficult thing to do? Why is it so complicated?
I'd say because nobody's perfect. There's always going to be something that you find like annoying about someone, or just like someone in passing. Like it's easier to just be like indifferent to them rather than being like, oh, I love this person even though I don't know who they are. So I'd say it's harder to love someone because there's just so many like outside factors. And if you don't have like a secure love growing up, it's going to be really easy for you to take what they do personally, even if like they don't want to hurt you. They're just telling you something that you need to hear, and you can just be like, oh, they're being mean, they're not like feeding into my delusions, so like they obviously like don't care for me. And it's very easy to just like start hating someone because of that.
Yeah. So would you say then that it's difficult to love without conditions? That, like, because it seems like those things you bring up are all conditions, right? Like, they do something, they say something, whatever, and then we maybe don't love them anymore. So what does it look like to love without conditions? Because we're told, I mean, the Lord loves us, right? How do we as humans love without condition? Or are we even called to? Should we love without conditions, do you think?
I think we should. It's just very difficult. But for me personally, like what I do, I just like when I'm going crazy, like with my parents, I like take a step back. I'm like, wait, they're doing this because they love me. And that might be after like I blew up on them. So I'm just feeling horrible. But like with friends and stuff, I'm just like, wait, they're telling me this because I have to hear it. They're telling me this because they love me. And I shouldn't hate them because they're trying to like help me be better.
Right. Okay. Okay, what about if the person that we love stops loving us? How should we respond?
I'd say just take it and go with it, because there's not much you can do. Like, you can't change
and go with it, go away, go towards. What do you think?
I personally go away.
Okay.
But I think it is a lot better if you like go and like talk to them about it and at least get some closure. Because if there's no closure, you're just left wondering like, oh, why'd they leave me? And then that can like snowball into a bunch of different things. So I think like when someone stops loving us, just take it with grace, ask them, and if they don't want to talk, you know, you have your answer. They don't love you anymore, so it's just like, it's better to leave that alone than keep trying, because they'll just get annoyed and just like love you even less.
Okay. You mentioned vulnerability in your speech. How are vulnerability and love related to one another?
I think you have, well, to let people love you and love others, you have to be vulnerable. Like, you have to like, open the doors like to who you are. And I personally find that very hard.
Same.
Yeah. But it's just really scary whenever you like talk about your emotions or you show any like a small ounce of emotion. And I think it's because a lot of people are afraid of how they're perceived. So like for me personally, like I don't like to be perceived as this emotional person, but I do have emotions, but I still don't like open up about it. I'm like, why don't these people like want to talk to me? Well, calls coming from inside the house. I have to let them in. I have to let them know who I am. But it's scary. It really is. Because what if they just say, oh, I don't want to hear it? Or like they say that they do want to hear it, but then they just start giving you advice before they like hear out all your like stuff, you know?
Right. So it's like a risk and reward thing, right? I mean, vulnerability is very risky. But then we can gain a greater reward. So is the reward that we can gain, if we would define maybe the reward as that love of others, is it worth the risk?
I'd say, yeah. Not in like a selfish way, but like knowing, like truly knowing that you're loved is something that like we all want.
Yeah.
And if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, you won't truly know if you are loved. And you'll just be like back and forth, like, oh, they love me, like they did something nice for me, or like, oh, they haven't talked to me all day, like they don't want anything to do with me, you know?
Right. I think that's great. Okay.
Good job. Okay. So in your paper, you had a quote by Charles Darwin, and it talks about how emotionality enhances survival. So I want to hear whether or not you agree with that, and then what would be the pros and cons in that?
Okay. So I kind of don't really agree with this, only because like you can't allow your emotions to dictate like what you do in like a survival situation. Like, for example, like zombie apocalypse, like it's not possible, but that's like the one that comes to mind. It's like your best friend or like your sibling was bit. You can't like hang on with them until like they turn, because like you don't know when exactly they're gonna turn. So you can't let your emotions get in the way of having to put it nicely, take care of business. So I'd say the pros of letting your emotions in is like you can deal with things like humanely, like with animals. Like if worse comes to worse and you have to like kill a bear or something, it's best to do it humanely than to like torture them, you know? And like the cons, it's like it allows you to be vulnerable to like predators or like outside things that can hurt you, you know?
Good.
Was that like the answer you were looking for?
Okay, so how do you think love enhances your survival or life in general?
When I was like reading for this, it said something that like love allows us to find the best characteristics in others, or like having a good love, it allows us to find like the good parts of humanity, I guess, and like it allows us to nurture it, and like it's something that like we can pass down, and that just creates like more loving people. If that answers your question.
Yeah. So what would be the other side of this? How does love like hurt our life, or
it causes you to do stupid things, like not stupid, but like you can have like your whole life planned out. You have your goals, you have the college you're going to, and then all because someone like you love someone is going to a different college, like a bunch of like 5 states away, you're gonna be like, oh, maybe I'll go with them, or maybe I'll like stay here and like wait for them. But that's not really a good choice. Like all because you love them, you shouldn't put your plans on hold just because you feel like you love someone and that you're going to be with them for the rest of your life.
Okay. So you keep mentioning in your speech, but then also just now, we've talked about this healthy love or good love. So what does that actually look like? What are we looking for in a good love or healthy love?
I'd say someone that just has like patience with who you are, or having patience for others, and looking for the best, like having the best intentions for each other, like helping each other work towards your goals, or just helping them get through something, and like not being judgmental, or not just ignoring their needs, but also like helping them, like indulging their needs a little, you know?
Okay. Something else you kind of talked about was this idea of clinginess or overloving people. So how, as Christians, we're called to love others and to selflessly love, right? So how do we do that in like a healthy way without becoming, to the extreme of overloving and suffocating someone?
It's very difficult to do that, because like if someone's not voicing their emotions, it's very easy to overlove or underlove. But just taking a step back and thinking like, just really taking into account how they feel about it, and like seeing if you've neglected other people when trying to love them, because a lot of times I've seen that people just like, if someone has if one of my friends has a boyfriend, like she'll just focus all her love on him and like kind of ignore her other friends. And I don't know if like he felt suffocated, but like it's definitely like something you have to take into account, like how much time you're spending with them, or how much you tell them, or how much you are like, hey, you can tell me anything, even when they don't want to talk.
Okay. Okay, so thinking about that, you talked about, knowing your own attachment, knowing, your love language kind of thing. So is it important to know your own attachment and love language?
I think so, yeah, because if you don't really know who you are, or like how you accept love, or how you feel towards people, it's going to be very hard for others to know that. So just like being able to, you don't have to exactly like voice it, but just like know that this is how you are, and like look at your tendencies and see if you're falling back. If it's an unhealthy type of love, looking back and seeing like if you're falling back into those habits.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's important to know the love language of anyone you're in a relationship with, whether that's a friendship, your parents, and all that?
I think so, yeah, because I have a friend, and we were hanging out a couple days ago, and she was like, I always ask people to hang out, and like I feel bad, like I don't feel like they like me because I'm always the one asking, so I've been trying to ask her more, because I feel like that's just when she really feels loved, when people ask to hang out with her, or people like show that they want to hang out with her. Mm-hmm. So I think, that's important.
So, is communication important?
It is, yeah.
Okay. So understanding how you need to be loved, letting them know, but then also figuring out how to show their love.
Yes.
Okay. Something else you talked about some was about, being willing to change. And I can't remember how you ended it. I think you said something about, let's see. Oh, I can't figure it out. It was something about change. So do you think whenever you're looking for, a relationship, whether it's a friendship or even with a significant other, are you looking to be changed or to change someone else?
I don't think you should be looking for that exactly, but just be open to it, because if you're gonna have someone in your life forever, you can't be the same person forever. You have to be able to grow and adapt to what they're doing, especially if for us, we're all going to college. We have to learn how to, I guess, interact with each other, especially after we come back, because we're probably not gonna be the same people we are.
Okay. And then thinking about this idea, is there a difference between a change and the compromises you are willing to make?
What do you mean?
So are you going to try to change who you are, or do you create compromises between the both of you?
I'd say you can try and find compromises, but if it's something that should be changed, it's going to be hard to see it at first, and it's going to take a lot of pushing, but just starting out with those little compromises helps.
How do you know if it's a healthy change or if this person is really just trying to change who you are?
It's going to be difficult, especially in the moment, but I'd say when outside people are telling you, hey, they're not good for you, they're trying to change who you are, or you're becoming a completely different person in a bad way, that really helps see if they're trying to change you for the better or for the worse. And with that, it's also if they're not trying to help you with your goals, so if you have a goal to run a 10K and they're just let's just sit on the couch today. I know you were going to train, but let's just sit on the couch today. It's kind of well, you knew that I wanted to do this, so why aren't you helping me?
Mm-hmm. Okay, now let's talk about our society and pop culture, right? So, I'm not sure if you're a Swiftie or not. So, Cody, this might be more for you. So here's a good old Taylor Swift lyrics.
Yes.
The way I loved you. But I miss screaming and fighting and kissing in the rain. So in love that you act insane. It's a roller coaster kind of rush, and I never knew I could feel that much. And that's the way I loved you. Is this normal?
I mean, if it's a constant roller coaster, I'd say that that's not a good form of love, I guess, technically. Only because, you should feel safe and secure when you're with someone. And, having these times where it's oh, I don't know what they're feeling, we're just gonna fight. Or, going in with the intention of fighting. It's not exactly love. It's more of, an adrenaline rush, in a sense.
Mm-hmm. And then this idea of clinginess, I feel it's just thrown around so much now. And so how do we understand if this person's just being loving and it's a healthy kind of love, and we're just not used to it, or if they are being clingy?
You're asking how to know if it's healthy or clingy?
Yeah.
I'd say if you are not used to a healthy type of love, it's going to be very difficult to know. So you just have to, I'm not entirely sure, just test the waters. Or look for outside help, I guess. Mm-hmm. Whether it's praying about it or actually just asking your friends, hey, is this normal? Just seeing other people's inputs, and if you decide to pray about it, you'll see what the Lord brings to you.
How do boundaries play a part in your communication and this idea of compromise and change?
Probably just doesn't let other people walk all over you, or it doesn't allow people to just take advantage of you not having boundaries. So saying, oh, I don't like going to bed late. Someone should, it's not a big boundary to cross, but some people will still be oh, hey, let's go party. I know you have something in the morning, but let's go. I'd say just them taking into account that boundary you've set, even if it's just a small one, really helps, like, in feeling love, like, no matter what your love language is. Because, in all honesty, I think most people just want to be heard and, like, accepted, and small things like that shouldn't matter.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to give it back to Mrs. Keynes.
You're almost done. So I have a few more questions to wrap up. First of all, we can't finish your thesis without a math reference. So I know that the book that you read for the thesis referenced Flatland, the book we read in geometry. Could you share a little bit about, like, the context of that and its relationship to your thesis?
So before that, I think the book was talking about, like, how I brought up love is another sense that we have. But in the example, it was like a bug only knows, like, it was like a bug crawling on a page with a cube drawn on it, and it only knows, like, those 12 lines and the acute and obtuse angles, and, like, it can't comprehend what we can, like, that it's actually like a cube, like, it looks like a cube. So in that, it said that the bug represents reptiles and the lines are, like, the inner state of others. It's like how reptiles just can't tell what we're feeling by, like, through our face or, like, our actions or whatever. They just know that that's happening.
Yeah. And I think that can also translate, like, between humans that have different attachment styles. Like, maybe you see how someone's reacting or their circumstances, but because you have a different style than them, it's hard to, like, really interpret that and understand.
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of, like, in summary, how do you think these principles and ideas of love have affected your experience at MCA, both among your peers, among your classmates, and then as an RT leader to younger students?
I've definitely realized I need to be more patient and, like, look at the whole picture, because I have a friend here who shall not be named, but she's always telling me about stuff, and sometimes I feel like when I want to talk about, like, my life, she's not there to listen, but then I'm like, she has things to do, she has things to, like, take into account, you know. But, like, with RT, I'm a very quiet person, so I don't really start conversations, but I try to. And when they talk, I try to listen. And when the conversation's burnt out, I feel really bad, but I'm just like, we'll just sit in silence then. But I want my RT girls to know that that's with love. Like, if you don't want to talk to me, it's, hey, I'm chilling. I don't care. If you want to talk, we can talk. If you don't, it's fine.
I think you've done a good job in RT of kind of, like, using your quiet nature to your advantage and connecting with the more quiet girls and being able to listen and ask good questions and good timing. And then kind of looking forward, how do you think these ideas will influence you, or how will you apply them in this next season at Tennessee?
Honestly, I have no clue. Like, with making new relationships, I'll probably just be there to, like, listen at first, and then hopefully I'll find someone, like a friend or someone, who will, like, let me just talk their ear off like I do with most of my friends here. But with, like, pre-existing relationships, realize that how it sounds over text is not how they mean it, because that's oftentimes how I jump to conclusions, because, like, I'll see a text from, like, my parents and I'll be like, they're mad at me, so I'm gonna be mad at them. So just take into account that I should probably call them instead of texting.
That's very practical closing advice. All right, so now we'll give you the chance to ask us a question.
So my question is there a moment, like a specific moment in your life that you, like, can look back on and be like, if that hadn't happened to me, or if, like, I didn't do that, I would not be who I am or where I am today? And if so, what is that moment?
I'll start, because mine's really easy for me, and that's when I was a wee little 5-year-old, and my parents signed me up to go to camp at TBRM, to go to day camp that first summer, and then I was a camper all the way through for 12 summers, and then worked at camp for 6 summers, which I wouldn't have done if I had never gone to camp, likely. And just, I mean, the whole time, camper and staff was formative, but especially my years on staff were really formative, spiritually, and I met my husband there, so that obviously would be very different if that hadn't happened. And ultimately, our connections through camp brought us to Midland. So, yeah, going back to 2003 when my parents signed me up for camp. I don't know what life would look like if they hadn't done that. So, yeah.
Oh my Lord.
That probably seemed like a small thing to them, but had a big domino effect in my life. So, yeah.
Okay. For me, I think I wasn't raised in a Christian home. I wasn't, neither of my parents went to college, anything like that. And my sophomore year of high school, I was at Lehigh or Legacy High, and had a science teacher who invited me to go. A&M was having a women and minority camp for engineering, and so she could nominate a couple people to go. And so she had nominated me to go, and I was like, I'll go try it. And before that, I mean, I was a decent student, but I really didn't have a why for doing anything. I mean, I would do it because that's what's expected, but I did enough to get by. And so going to that camp, not only did it expose me to the area of engineering, which is what I ultimately pursued, it also exposed me to A&M. And made me consider things that I wouldn't have considered before. And so coming back from that camp, I had a why. I want to go pursue college. I want to major in engineering. I'm going to go to A&M. I'm going to do those things. And then through going to A&M, I met my husband there. I gave my life to the Lord there. I formed a lot of relationships that have just changed my life going forward. And it's all because that one teacher invited me to a camp. So.
Okay, so I had told them something different, but after like really trying to figure it out, I think what would probably have changed my entire life is whenever my mom got remarried and having my new stepdad in my life, because I wouldn't be at MCA, I wouldn't have gone to school here, I definitely wouldn't be back teaching here, and so that was definitely probably the defining factor of my life right there. And so, yeah. I'm going to close us in prayer, and we get to celebrate you. Okay. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for giving us this time with Frida, and thank you for letting all these people come out and show her support. And thank you for being love and giving unconditional love to us all when we are unworthy. I ask that you be with Frida on her next venture in life, that she finds love and seeks you through it all, and that she has a wonderful time in Tennessee. And I ask all of this in your holy, precious name. Amen.
Amen.